Good evening and welcome to the script. I'm your host, Isaac Paul. Let's go ahead and get right into it, man. We got a lot to discuss because this was a special week that has just passed. But for those of you all that are tuning in potentially for the first time, once again, I am Isaac Paul and this is the script. So, what is the script? The script is kind of like the digital counterpart to the Tequila Tales. What's the Tequila Tales? The Tequila Tales is a fully engaging and highly interactive discussion on love and relationships. What we are not is a panel discussion. And I'm always certain to say that once again, no shade to panels, right? I love panels. We all love panels. But the bad part about panels sometimes is that they have a tendency to just highlight the thoughts, the concerns, the emotions, the views of the experts that are there presenting. With the Tequila Tales, our motto is with love, we all have a story to share. And so my job is to get those authentic stories out of the very people that attend the event. Now, this is brought to you in conjunction with blackdoctor.org. And blackdoctor.org, for those of you all that are not fully familiar with blackdoctor.org, they are an organization that highlights healthcare practitioners and people of color, right? So sometimes, you may be looking for a healthcare practitioner that shares similar, cultural backgrounds, similar experiences as you do. Not that there's anything wrong with any physician, but there are sometimes where you are seeking the comfort of someone that may understand you on a deeper level, right? Just beyond what the clipboard, and the data is saying. And so, what they've attempted to do is align individuals with those healthcare practitioners of color. They've been, around for over a decade at this point, and so when, we decided to do this collaborative kind of show, I thought that it was just like a great idea, right? Because, when you think about what Tequila Tales is, we're kind of focusing on the emotional/relationship health. Now, full disclaimer, I am not an expert, right? I am not a doctor, okay? So the thoughts and views expressed herein do not represent the organization, right? So that's just full as disclaimer. And we are adults, okay? So, if you all haven't done so already, now is the time. I'm gonna go ahead and give you a quick second. Go ahead and pull, go ahead and pour yourself a libation. It's the evening. And we're going to kind of relax and hopefully engage in some spirited discourse. Now, regardless of where you are watching this, okay, because right now I'm streaming through like 5 different places, whether you're watching it on YouTube or if you're watching it on Facebook, just know that if you comment, I have the ability to see the comments. I can respond to them and I can share them on the screen, right? So, if at any given point you want to interact with me, whether you are the only person in that room, feel free to make a comment. I can go ahead and share the comment and we can engage from that point. Now, there's quite a bit that we have to discuss this evening, but one of the things that we are going to talk about is the recap, right? So this past week, we hosted our 12th year anniversary at Onyx Gallery. And it was a very, very special show for a myriad of different reasons, not only because, 12 years in the game, and just all the experiences that come with that, all of the different moments, all of the relationships that have been built. But it was also super special because it was the final event at Onyx Gallery, kind of, sort of, right? And we'll get into that in a moment, right? But Onyx Gallery, as we know it, has closed. And, because of that, that has been the facility that we've utilized for the last 2 years. And the owners of Onyx Gallery have become more than just good friends, more than just partners. They've become family. And so, it's really been an incredible experience that we've shared over the past couple of years. And, it was a moment. It was a moment. And, I've always said that the facility is kind of like the silent partner, right? The silent partner of the Tequila Tales, because there have been times where I've had people that'll reach out to me and they'll say, you know what, you should throw a show here, or man, you should probably reach out to so and so and so. And first off, I always love the suggestions because oftentimes when people have gone to the Tequila Tales, they understand how important the aesthetic is, right? But there have been times, unfortunately, where I've had to decline certain offers just because the the venue, the aesthetic of the venue, the atmosphere is kind of like the silent partner. It is what gets people in the mood. It's what makes the event enjoyable. And so because of that, I've always been very picky about where we can actually host this show. There have been some places that might actually be pretty high end, but maybe the layout doesn't accommodate the way that we kind of wanted to. And so in those moments, I have to unfortunately decline certain opportunities. Right now, when it came to Onyx Gallery, they were just the perfect venue for just so many different reasons. Right, one, it was Black owned. Two, it was Black owned from two people from Chicago. So right there was automatic symmetry. But then also three, they just really did a good job of how they laid out this space, and just the quality and overall experience that they maintained. Right, I think it really put people in a good mood. It really made them comfortable for the entire experience. They had a stage, microphones, very comfortable couches and seats, and just so many things. Like I said, from the aesthetic aspect of it, just made it comfortable, which is important when you are attempting to engage people and you want them to feel open and honest and vulnerable, right? And so we are going to dive into some of that content shortly. But, as always, man, we got some things that's been happening. And so we're going to dive into this segment, in the news, right? And so, man, what's been going on in this past week? Okay, it's been quite a bit, right? But I feel that it is important for us to kind of tap into what has been happening just in the past maybe 48 hours, okay? Because if you do not know what's happening, okay, like, we'll call this segment "Take Me Out the Group Chat." Okay, please take me out the group chat. So I know y'all probably already know exactly where we're going with this, but for those of you all that are not familiar, I'm gonna just go ahead and just read a little update. In March 2025, a significant national security breach occurred involving senior officials of the Trump administration. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and other top officials used an encrypted messaging app called Signal to discuss sensitive military operations against the Houthi targets in Yemen. Unintentionally, journalist Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, was added to this group chat, granting him access to classified information and planned strikes. The group chat named Houthi, I believe it's Houthi PC small group included high-ranking officials such as Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Within this chat, detailed discussions occurred regarding the timing, targets, and strategies of the impending military actions. Goldberg, realizing the gravity of the information he had access to, reported the incident, bringing it to public attention. In response to the revelations, Defense Secretary Hegseth denied any war plans were shared via text, stating nobody was texting war plans. He also criticized Goldberg's reporting, labeling him deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist. Despite these denials, the National Security Council confirmed the authenticity of the messages and initiated a review to understand how such a breach occurred. Now, listen, y'all. I mean, it's not funny, but it's kind of hilarious at the same time, right? Because how many times have you been invited to a group chat anonymously and you think to yourself, like, why did they put me in this? Right? Like, I mean, I'm on about 4 or 5 family group chats right now. And the only reason I have not left them is because I think certain people's phones give them an update that Isaac Paul has left the chat. And I don't want to seem like that guy, right? I don't want to seem like that guy that don't care about family business. I don't want to seem like that guy that don't care about what's happening with my aunts and uncles and distant relatives, okay? But, we all have unfortunately had to deal with the group chat where, you get added in. You didn't ask to be added in, especially on social media. Like, in your DMs, there's all, like, it used to be people and now it's just strippers and people that are in OnlyFans that's trying to, up their clout. But typically, you would get added to these group chats and it would just be like, okay, why am I here? Right. And sometimes you can't take yourself out, but this is different. This is different. And it was so much, in fact, that the editor in chief of The Atlantic said that at first he thought that it was fake. He thought that it was like a complete farce until a couple of days later, he saw that the airstrikes had gone underway. And then he realized, oh my God, this is absolutely, totally legit, right? And so as it turns out, his initials mirror that of one of the high-ranking security officials inside of this administration. And so I guess while Pete Hegseth was adding people, to the group chat, he unintendedly added a editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, right? This is beyond sloppy, and this goes without us understanding. I mean, without us even having to argue that, right? I think that on a personal level, when I think about this, the first thing I thought was, see, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, without being that guy to just, start getting extra political, but to just say, this is the real reason that I've had an issue with this administration from the jump, right? With Trump. Ain't got nothing to do with the racist stuff. Racist stuff don't bother me. Not that it's not important, but just because, okay, I expect billionaire white people to be racist. Like, that's not like I would be surprised if you weren't, okay? You get that level of money. Hell, if I became a billionaire, I might be a little racist at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, not to just give them the pass, but just to say that's not the thing that surprises me. What frustrated me about everyone that supports this guy is how ineffective he is, or how unintelligent he is as it relates to, like, how bumbling they do things. Like, it's always this type of stuff, right? And I just feel like that position is entirely too important for mistakes like this to occur. And I don't think that this is something that we could consider to be like completely out of the blue. It's like, y'all strap in. This is the same guy that told people to inject themselves with bleach and to go stand out in the sunlight during the height of the pandemic, when we didn't even 100% know what we were dealing with, well before there was any kind of a vaccine or a full understanding. This guy was just hopping on and just throwing out a bunch of dangerous information as the leader of the free world, right? So it's like that, in conjunction with about, I don't know, 800 or 900 other things, has already given us a clear indication that this is someone who's a better entertainer than he is a leader, right? A better entertainer than he is a manager, or someone that should be in charge of any kind of governing, capacity. And so to see something like this happen just 4 months in, I used to tell people, like, when I go back and forth with people, and, I remember I was going back and forth with like a really close friend of mine, where I was just sharing one of the major concerns that I have about this, beyond the politics, is this guy's got access to the nuclear codes, right? Like, is this really who we want to have in control? We saw how he bumbled the COVID response, and then we decided to double down. So, like, my whole thing is like, yo, the next mistake is going to be something that's not, and not that the first mistake was okay. I mean, we lost 1 million people, right? Because a president that knew about this several months in advance decided to not take action because of how it was going to make him look. This is someone who sits on information and chooses not to share it for the betterment of people, right? And then people are electing him because they believe that he's going to bring down the price of eggs. And it's like, y'all, forget the price of eggs. What good is eggs if we don't have a country to come back to? And this is the kind of nonsense that I'm talking about, right? So then it gets you thinking, like, okay, what really happened? You know what I'm saying? Because I get it, accidents happen, and now you got their whole administration like, all right, y'all, we all send an accidental text every once in a while. And it's like, is it really that simple? Is it really that simple? You guys are giving targets. You know what I'm saying? Like, one of the officials apparently was in Moscow at the time. So then it's just like, okay, what are we doing, y'all? What are we doing? This is the guy that's in charge of it all. This is the one that when we found out that he was being appointed, everybody was like, okay, not only is this a Fox News analyst, but this is someone who's had a history in alcoholism. No shade to anyone that is dealing with recovery, right? That is a very serious issue, and I don't take that lightly. But I'm saying you all didn't even properly vet this person. This is something that if any other administration had have selected a now, and I do know that he does have some military credentials, but the weight on the other side, right? All the red flags on the other side normally would be a disqualifier for a position of such elevated importance. You know what I'm saying? So for this to just be 4 months into this administration, this is a clear indication, y'all. Strap the hell in. Strap the hell in. My man is inviting people to the group chat that don't belong, right? So for those of you all that like I said, wanted to, just get a little bit more. So I wanted to share this right here because this was part of what they said was this was his initial response, okay, which I thought was kind of fascinating. But obviously this isn't something that was like a good thing, but this was how he decided to respond to this scenario. Instead of just saying, you know what, it was a situation, I apologize, blah, 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 blah. When the reporters questioned him, this was his response.
Share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic, and were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
Right,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The NSC said it was authentic. Secretary.
Okay, so there you have it, right? My man was just like, hey, listen, man, as I was sitting there and I was listening to him, I was just thinking in the back of my mind, like, what is he talking about? Like, this is the people on both sides. This is the dog. You are completely skipping over what she asked you, which was just, how did that happen? Can you give us some insight on how this happened? You know what I mean? Like, in that moment, man, just like take ownership. I'm not even saying you gotta apologize. Just, I think that there's something powerful about people that have the ability to like acknowledge, wrongdoing. Oftentimes it's seen as weakness, but I feel like there are times where if you own up to it, it honestly just makes you appear like more of a boss, right? Like, and I'm not saying that just to take aim at him. I've seen people botch this on numerous occasions. I think one of the first times that I saw it where I said to myself, okay, he totally blustered that moment was Bill Clinton when the Monica Lewinsky stuff was going on. I remember when they first came out, man, his first thing was, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. He was firm. I remember I got watching it. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. Tell her like it is. You know what I'm saying? Don't let him get you down, And And then like a couple of weeks later, after all the evidence came out and we realized the reality of what it was, I remember it was like cut to camera one. It looked like my man's had aged 20 years. You know, his eyes had looked bloodshot and he just looked defeated. And he was just kind of stumbling his way through it. And I remember thinking then, like, you know what? There's a way that he could have acknowledged wrongdoing, gave some context, but then still maintain some degree of strength, right? And I'm not talking about like that kind of artificial degree, but just like a take ownership and move the hell on. You know what I'm saying? I don't understand how people feel like admitting wrongdoing or admitting error is a weakness. You know, that is one of the things that admittedly I think I always appreciated about former President Obama was that, you know, when you ask him certain questions and he acknowledges, you know, oversight, he can kind of take ownership of it, right? Because the reason he's doing that is because he didn't do the shit on purpose. You know what I'm saying? And hindsight being 2020, if I knew then what I know now, yeah, I would have done this differently, right? So it's not about making an excuse. It's just about acknowledging that, like, hey, you know what? Yeah, looking back at it, there are probably some things that we could have done differently. You know what I'm saying? However, blase, blase, blah, right? I feel like the next group of leaders that have that capacity to be open and honest with the American public are going to be surprised, because what they're going to realize is how understanding we actually can be at your imperfections, right? It's almost like everybody keeps posturing, you know, and that to me is what I find to be so frustrating about the entirety of like all of these situations. Is just like this belief that you cannot be, and I don't expect 100% honesty, but it's like, bro, you're sitting here telling this reporter that you were not giving war plans. Meanwhile, the White House has already stipulated that that was in fact the group text, right? That those messages were authentic, and we don't even know the full totality of what it was that was discussed, because when the gentleman who wrote the article, the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic, he's only giving you like bits and pieces. Like, so just check this out, because here's another you know, thing that I thought was kind of fascinating. When I saw this, I was like, okay, like, yeah, this is where things just get a little sloppy. So hold on, let me see if I can pull this up. Because there actually was a gentleman that like he kind of broke it down, and he did make it known, like, nah, like there was actually quite a bit more that was discussed that they just are not speaking about.
About a deceased, highly discredited so-called journalist who's
sorry about that,
of peddling hoaxes time and time again. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
I'm going to be responsible here and not disclose the things that I read and saw. I will describe them to you. The specific time of a future attack, specific targets, including human targets, meant to be killed in that attack, weapon systems, even weather reports, or, you know, that the government is I don't know why Hexet was sharing it with everybody. I mean, the precise detail, and then a long section on sequencing. This is going to happen, then that is going to happen. After that happens, this happens, then that happens, and then we go and find out if it worked. I mean, you know, he can say that it wasn't a war plan, but it was a minute by minute accounting of what was about to happen, organized by CENTCOM, Central Command, which is the military oversight group of the Middle East, the broader Middle East. This is their plan, and he was taking their plan and sharing it with a bunch of civilian leaders. It's interesting because as I'm reading it at 11:44 a.m. on Saturday morning, the 15th, seeing that the Houthis are not going to know about this for another couple of hours.
And you know about it.
Well, and I know about it, and I'm thinking to myself, I mean, honestly, I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm glad that Mike Waltz didn't invite a Houthi into the group or a Russian spy or an adversary of the United States. But put that aside. I'm reading this and I'm wondering, not only why am I reading this, but why would the Secretary of the Treasury need to know the precise attack sequence of this upcoming operation? Again, I don't want to talk about weapons systems, packages, targets in any specificity because, I'm trying to be, I want to be a responsible person, and I'm more interested in the decision making anyway than I am in the actual technical details of it. But the whole thing is just very flummoxing to me because I haven't seen this kind of unserious behavior before. And, and the Secretary of Defense, all due respect, in that presentation seems like a person who's unserious and is trying to deflect from the fact that he participated in a conversation on an unclassified commercial messaging app that he probably shouldn't have participated in.
Yeah, I mean, there you have it, right? I mean, it's I saw a comment on Instagram that kind of stood out to me, and the gentleman said something to the degree of like how every time that we get into this space where things that are easily, refuted, facts that are easily discovered are denied, and that they are not being like pretty much taken to task on this, that our democracy dies a little bit more. I'm not articulating it the way he did, but the basic gist of that, I so agree with that, man. Like, we are in such a dangerous place right now. Like, even beyond, like I said, beyond the political stuff, man, I just think that we are in this space where like it's getting harder and harder to get a handle on reality. You know what I mean? And what it means to be accountable. If the White House says that this is real, someone else got the full transcript, you messed up, and the first thing you decide to do when you get off this airplane is start lying and gaslighting and scapegoating and pretending like the shit isn't real. But more importantly, it's like, okay, so what are the repercussions of this, right? Because I mean, and I don't, forgive me, because I think we're all experiencing this for the first time, because it always felt like there were like consequences to stuff like this. You know what I mean? It always felt like, one, the media is going to hold your feet to the fire. Two, collectively, the public will be outraged, which would then force the administration to make some decisions and, either change or remove people or whatever. But we are in this state right now where like people could care less about what's fact, what's real, what's not. It's like people comfortably just want to hear what it is that they want to hear. And as long as you're telling them what it is that they want to hear, they're fine with it. And this is an incredibly dangerous, but if this dude is able to skate past this, and I'm not even saying like maintain this position, because I don't know what would typically be the repercussions for something like this, if someone should be eliminated or whatever. But just the fact that you don't even have to take ownership of it. They put all the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Congress was talking to them today, and one of them was like, one of the senators was kind of, digging into one of the people that was part of the Security Council, and they was like, "Do you not see this as a major issue?" And the dude flat out was like, "No." What? It's like they are just lying right in our face, and we just got to be cool with it. You know what I'm saying? And I already know, like, I'm just like the 92%. This is as concerning as it is. This is kind of their fight. You know what I'm saying? Because if y'all think this is cool, I already know what the future is going to look like. You know what I'm saying? We got a couple of comments. Casey said our national security is trash. That's what's happening. Right. So the journalist in this is wrong here. Right. Yep. The pivot is working. All right, we got Pepe. He said gaslighting and love bombing are not healthy ways of love. Literally, they are like smoke screens to keep you from seeing their true self. If they seem too perfect to be true, they probably are. Do not settle for toxic relationships. If you feel a partner is cheating on you, I highly recommend you a professional computer. Oh, okay, no, that's okay. I'm sorry. I thought that dude was eating. I'm sorry. He talking about something else. Praying for your physical and mental health as well as your peace of mind. Thank you, Candace. But yeah, so I mean, you know, that's what's happening in the news right now, and we will see how this plays out, right? Because I mean, obviously, there wasn't a massive amount of information that was leaked to whereas, you know, it prevented the you know, everything that the military operations wanted to execute. I mean, yeah, they were able to execute. I think it's just us understanding that if this is how you guys are operating right now, and you all seem to take no outward accountability, what's going to happen moving forward, right? We are 4 months in. That's the thing. People be talking about voting them out 4 years from now. I'm like, y'all really think we're going to be able to deal with this 4 years? I'm not saying what that means. I'm just saying, if you really think that as a nation, we are going to be able to handle this level of incompetence at that level for 4 years, you got way more faith in the system than I do. I don't even know what this means. I'm just saying that I don't think that it just gets better, right? How you start is how you finish, and they starting in a very shitty way. So I don't think they're just going to right the ship. I think it's like strap in, right? And I think that's what most people know. Now, for this next segment, and this is where it's going to get interesting, because, you know, I've been saying in the past couple of weeks that, you know, I've been really big into Threads, right? Like Threads is, for whatever reason, the new social media app that I've really been kind of tapped into. And I saw a post recently that's I find to be fascinating. And this is one of those posts where I'm like, I think it's going to have people divided. Even in the comment section, I saw that people fell on one of two sides. Okay. And so this is going to be interesting because I really would like to know you all's feedback on this. And like I said, you know, we'll go through some of the comments. You all feel free to share your feedback in the comment section, but we're going to call this one gift or guilt trip. Okay. Gift or guilt trip. So the post says, LOLOL. I reached out to a friend, quote unquote, yesterday and asked for their address. They just relocated back to Atlanta and I was going to drop off a housewarming gift. They asked why I needed the address and I responded I was going to stop by and they never responded back. This morning, I woke up and returned the two gifts I purchased, not wasting my time or not wasting my money in 2025. So, I mean, you know, what's your thoughts on this? Okay, because when I read this, there's a couple of different things that's happening in this post, right? And I guess before I really dig in and kind of share what my thoughts are, right? Like I said, the comments were interesting because people fell on one or two extremes, right? They were either on the, well, y'all are not really friends, or they were kind of more on the personal boundaries phase. But I did feel like that these were key tension points that, you know, is what makes, I think, this post so entertaining for me. You know, one, was the friend being rude or simply protecting their boundaries, right? Two, was Kenya being generous or was the gesture more about being seen as thoughtful, right? And three, how should people handle situations where friendship expectations are not reciprocated? Okay. Now, is a gift really a gift if it comes with expectations? Right. So that's the first thing that we have to analyze, even before we get into all the specifics, right? Like, you know, you had an expectation that because you had a gift or because you were doing something warm that you felt like they were warranted to invite you into their space. You know, this to me was fascinating because in 2025, are we still doing like, I mean, maybe she didn't feel like this was an unexpected pop-up, right? Because of the fact that she was asking you for your address. So is asking for the address the same as permission and kind of trying to figure out like where you're at? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, like I said, feel free to share, you all's thoughts on this, because these comments had me very entertained. So this was the first one that I saw, which, I think that she might have came in a little hard, but I think she was a little bit more along the lines of where my mind was going. So she said, you were wrong. But of course, you're the type that won't see that. 1, hey girl, I have a housewarming gift for you. Do you want me to mail it or hand deliver it? 2, hey girl, I need to see you. When can we hang out? Or 3, hey girl, I know you're not up for company since you just moved in. I'll be on your side of town next weekend. You down for a lunch date? My treat. Right? So I kind of got what it was that they were saying in that particular segment, because it's just like, okay, in that comment, you're basically calling bullshit. You're basically saying, you know what? There was a whole lot of other ways that you could have said you wanted to come over and give a gift. And if we really go back to the original comment, it's like she never said that she had a gift. Now, I get it. You shouldn't have to say that you have a gift, but it's like, if you don't make your intentions clear, then to me, that pretty much means you're just trying to pull up and kick it. Right? This woman just moved in. First off, she relocated back. Do you know why she relocated back? Because there could be a whole lot of reasons of why she relocated back. You have no awareness of her mental, emotional, or physical state. You just want to pull up. And it's clearly because now, and 2, is that something that y'all commonly do? You know what I'm saying? Like you felt very entitled to this woman's space. Just because you bought 2 gifts, you felt like she was supposed to be welcoming to you, not even knowing that you had done these kind gestures. To me, that just kind of feel like one of them out of the blue texts where somebody is trying to invite themselves over to your crib so they can drink up your liquor. And I'm keeping it a buck, right? I'm keeping it a buck. You know what I'm saying? Let me know how y'all feel about this, right? Because like I said, people in the comments, they were all over the place, right? Here go the next comment. They said, these comments are weird, right? Weird. As a quote unquote friend, I shouldn't have to explain why I want your address to come by. Also, as a quote unquote friend, you should be adult enough to say, hey girl, now isn't the time, instead of leaving me on red. I would have returned the gifts too, shaking my head, right? Like, word, that's what we are. You know what I'm saying? Yo, so if I now, here's what's funny about that comment, right? And I hope my man's ain't watching. So I got a cousin, right? And my cousin, he a Gemini. And I don't know if this is Gemini behavior or if this is just my cousin behavior. But my cousin is one of those types where he's a driver. He is going to keep going until you tell him no. You got to tell my cousin no. He is gonna keep pushing. If he senses any bit of wavering, any bit of weakness in you, he's gonna get his way. Like, that's how he used to bag chicks back in the day, man. He is the love bombing extraordinaire. He gonna keep on going, keep on suggesting, keep on pushing until you say, all right, no. Now, no means no to him, but you're gonna have to be firm in it, because and it's funny because that's kind of like it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because it's like a gift and a flaw with him, right? Like, there are times where you do need people to kind of shake you out of your lethargy, right? There are times where you do need people to kind of force you to do something, like it happens all the time, even with my wife. Oh, I plan to do, and she got all kinds of shit on the calendar, and then we going out and doing things, and every thought about it leading up to it, even from the moment it was on the calendar to the prep, I don't feel like doing it. Oh man, why she be doing the most, man? Like, why can't we just chill at the crib some goddamn time? You know what I mean? Like, not that she got to fully twist my arm, but just knowing that if you ask me up front, I probably would have been like, nah, I don't know if I kind of feel like that, right? But in the gentle nudge and me acquiescing, I end up going out, having a great time, and being very appreciative that she, you know, did whatever thing or put forth the effort, because maybe she knew that this is something that we'd appreciate later on, or, you know, if we wait until it's convenient to do this thing, then it'll never happen, right? So there are certain times where certain people can gently nudge you, and you end up kind of leaning into a situation and end up being totally appreciative because you had way more fun than you thought you were going to have, right? So that is like a real thing. And so going back to my cousin, I appreciate it in those moments when, you know, he does kind of twist my arm. We do end up going out and kicking it. And then, you know, because I am that type of person. Like when I'm in the present and I'm having a good time, I'm in the moment, and then I end up appreciating whatever the exhaustive process was that got me out there, right? So I get that. But like I said, when it comes to him, he is the type where if he's pushing and you know, no, you're going to have to tell him no, and you're going to have to be firm. Because if he think that there's even an inkling that you might want to go, oh, he pulling up at your crib, right? With company. You know what I'm saying? So like, you got to let him know sometimes, like, nah, man, not tonight. Not tonight. You know what I mean? So like, when I saw that comment, I was like, okay, maybe she's that kind of friend that's just like, well, if we friends and it wasn't a good time for you, then you should have let me know. You know what I'm saying? But then I also be like, but should a friend have to do that, right? I don't know. I'm still debating. Here go another comment. These comments. So this is funny. This is a little gaslighting right here. So many of y'all say you want community, but you have no idea how to be in community. Take those gifts back to the store. Catch up with your friend if and when they reach out. Tell them how you felt about the whole exchange. Find some common ground. Because for me, dropping off welcome housewarming gifts is a normal and nice gesture. I'd wait for the invite unless it was my people's, in which case, heifer, give me the address and stop being funky. But it's possible that I think she might have got cut off on that back end. So, you know, I think that that's kind of in that lane of what I was saying a moment ago, right? Where you just like, okay, you know, you that kind of friend. She probably an Aries. Whoever it was that made that comment is an Aries, right? Where they don't think, they just drive. You know, they're not trying to be selfish. It's just their way, right? And that's one of the things about astrology. It lets me know, it's like we all do operate differently. An Aries ain't gonna get their feelings hurt. If you like, girl, hell no, I'm in my pajamas, or no, I ain't in the mood. You know, and they be like, oh, okay, well then shit. But then, girl, holla at me and let me know. Like, you might be one of those type of people where you wanted that kind of interaction. In which case, I understand that. But once again, was this the kind of relationship that y'all had up front, right? Like, is this how y'all get down? Because otherwise, you were being awfully presumptive to just believe you could just pull up at this chick crib. You know what I'm saying? Like, once again, she relocated back. You know she packing. You know she's packing. The fact that you had the audacity to even give us that little bit of feedback ahead of time, like, yeah, she just relocated. And you sitting here thinking that while she's unpacking, what she want is company. You know what I mean? And had you said you had some gifts, then at least she understand. Like, if your idea was to just kind of pop in, give a gift, then to me, you like, you know, when she said, what's your address? Oh, no. She said, why you want my address? Oh, girl, listen, man, you know, I know you just relocated back in. I got you some gifts. Look, I know you're probably busy. I just want to drop them off. Just tap in, see how you're doing. Now, I think at that point, once your friend, right, recognizes your intention, then probably they feel a little bit more comfortable with opening up and letting you know whatever else is going on. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's just her not being in a mental, emotional state, whether her house is a mess. You know what I'm saying? You know, hell, she could have had some action over there, right? She could be butt ass naked trying to get her freak on, and here you are pulling up with your 2 gifts. She don't tell me she went and returned them gifts. They probably some old corny. They probably 2 cheap ass bottle of wine or something. You know what I mean? Like, you came over with 2 bottles of wine so that you can pull up and drink and hotbox for the next 3-4 hours. She know how you do, Kenya. You know what I'm saying? She ain't got time for your bullshit today, okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. But like I said, comments was split. They were split. I'm really curious to know how y'all feel, man. So if y'all got thoughts, just go ahead and put them in the comments, man, so I can know. Someone else goes, yikes. The way this reads sounds like you invited yourself over. That was rude on your part. Also seems immature to give them a vague, I'm stopping by, and then getting your feelings that they didn't pass the test and punishing them by returning the gifts. I don't think they lose anything by not having someone in their life playing games like that. I mean, you know, she kind of got a point, right? She kind of got a point. And I'm not somebody that's, you know what I'm saying? You know, like, yeah, don't play games, man. I'm 45. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no 45. I'm 45 with a toddler. Okay. You ain't just about to pull up. I wish one of my niggas would just hit me up right now. I'm in the middle of doing this and I see a text message and then I respond. And then all of a sudden somebody is just like, you know, oh man, what's your address? The first, I'm gonna be honest, my ass cheeks gonna get a little tight. My stomach gonna tighten up a little bit too. Cause I'm be like, oh, man, come on, dog. Now the thing about me is I probably will do what she desire, which is letting her know, nah, you know, this ain't a good time, you know, blase, blase, blah, right? I probably wouldn't have left you ghost, not because you don't deserve to be left on ghost, right? Because you probably deserve to be left on ghost, but I'm not gonna leave you on ghost because if I already gave you my address or you already have it, I need to let you know not to pull up or you might end up pulling up, right? I'm assuming she probably didn't even get this person her address because she probably know this chick. If I give you my address, you're the type that don't respect boundaries, right? You're the type that's still gonna pull up and find your way over to my crib. You know what I'm saying? Oh, would you say, Casey? I'm definitely checking before pulling up, right? And letting her know I'm not staying, just dropping off gifts. And see, that to me is not a big ask, right? I don't think that is, you know, you being bogus, you know, but I did see this comment and this did make me pause for a moment, right? Just to be clear. A few weeks ago, I sent out a message on Signal to a group, Signal. That's the same app that, anyway, never mind. You know, once again, boy, these group chats on Signal, man, they're dangerous. To a group I belong to here in Atlanta, that I would not make a group's monthly meeting because it was my brother's first death anniversary, and I just wanted to go on a drive instead. They said, we understand, and also, can you share your address? I figured it was for some kind of gesture. And when I got home to my drive, when I got home from my drive, I had a gift of home baked goods and beautiful notes and things on my porch. Some of us literally move like this. Stop it. Stop it. Okay. This is comparing apples to oranges. Now, when I saw that, I did take pause because, you know, yes, I can understand that there are people that move like that, right? And I do think that is fair. But I think that there is a difference between you sharing that you're kind of going through something because of a death, right? And condolences and people asking for your address, because we know what that is, right? We know that they probably want to send flowers. They probably want to send something. So when they ask you for your address, you were expecting a package or something of the sorts, right? What if you had gotten home from your drive and there was 6 heifers on your front lawn with 2 bottles of tequila and 3 bottles of wine because they just wanted to chop it up with you, you know, and make certain that you wasn't lonely? Would you feel the same way then? Would you feel the same way if it wasn't nice gifts that were left and you still got access to your privacy, right? So you could just accept a nice gesture and still kind of do your own thing, as opposed to them invading your space and you having to accommodate them when really what you desired in that moment was privacy, right? So it's like, I hear the point that she was attempting to make as it relates to there are some people like this, but once again, I don't know if the original comment, if the person who posted that, I don't know if her intentions were just pure like that. I don't know if they were just purely selfless like that, right? Because to me, I don't know, that just feels a little, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, like stop it. You want some BS, right? But at the same time, though, I do understand that people do warm things, and you people feel funny when you get a little cagey about stuff like that, But like I said, me on a personal level, I'm someone that likes to err on the side of respecting people's boundaries in their personal space. So I feel like or you should know whether or not you have that kind of friend, because that's an activity that you all frequent in. You frequently pop up, they frequently pop up at your spot. And that's just the kind of bond that you all have. But if this is not something that you've done, and to say that she relocated, okay, so that means that she's been gone for a period of time. So even if you all had that relationship upon her departure, are you certain that y'all are that way upon her return? You see what I'm saying? Like, there's just so many different elements that I feel like go into play with this that I don't know. But again, I could be wrong, man. If y'all feel different, man, feel free to share it with you. Feel free to share it. There's the final comment. This woman said, okay, I'll probably get dragged for this, but coming from the perspective of an introvert here, I don't like people inviting themselves to my place, not even family. My home is my peace where I guard my energy. So yeah, I'm quirky with that. That being said, I prefer to meet someone somewhere, not even their house, have lunch, dinner, catch up, and then go back to my recharging space. I also got called a bad friend for not being as extroverted and welcoming as people want me to be. I'm just saying. So, I I understand that. And I think because I'm someone that attempts to meet people where they're at, I wouldn't have been assumptive in that regard, nor gotten my feelings hurt when they didn't respond. I would have probably self-checked myself like, oh shit, you know what, you was doing the most. Because I can be extra sometimes, right? Don't let me have had a drink or two, right? Oh yeah, I might try to just pull up, you know what I'm saying? And really I would. I'm always text you first, just because you don't know what you're walking into. And you pull up and you're in imposition. See, I got two pet peeves. I do not like to be misunderstood, and I don't like to be taken for granted. And not liking to be taken for granted means I attempt to not put myself in places where I'm not going to feel appreciated. You see what I'm saying? And so if I'm popping up at your crib, by nature, I'm imposing. I'm an imposition. And I'm not going to like that energy that I'm going to feel like I'm wasting your time, right? Dead ass. The moment I feel like my presence is not welcome, you ain't got to ask me that. I ain't never been the dude that people got to walk out and be like, man, so what y'all finna do? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm reading the body language. I'm already knowing like, oh shit, is he yawning? There's been times I might try to move out. They're like, dude, where you going? We just started kicking. And like, oh, okay, no, I just want to make certain. I see you yawning and shit. And I didn't know, I'm that type of guy, right? Like my presence needs to be desired. I ain't twisting nobody's arm. I ain't doing none of that. Cause I one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is to never cast your pearls amongst the swine. And I feel like I'm pearls. I spit jewels and I am a gem. So if you don't want what it is that I have to offer, by all means, right? That's the cool thing about being an extrovert, but also a bit of an introvert also, is that I'm just as cool being by myself as I am being around other people. And so I ain't never got to twist somebody's arm to be around me, right? And so because of that, I got to make certain that if I'm the one doing the suggestion, that you gotta want this too. But, one question that I guess I did ponder on is, are we losing the beauty of unscripted community care in the name of protecting our peace, right? Because I do believe that there was once a time where things weren't so formal. And I understand that this is a bit of a product of this world that we live in. But one of the things that I often talk about a lot is just our need to circle the wagons, right? And to build community. And so, that's why that one comment where the one person was like, y'all want community, but y'all don't know how to be in community. That caught me off guard a little bit, because I was like, okay, I am someone that does do the community big upping. And sometimes a part of community is the inconvenience, right? Sometimes the part of community is doing the things that can feel uncomfortable, right? And so I can even understand her being disappointed, her feelings being a little hurt. I just kind of feel like she jumped the gun in returning the gifts and kind of copping an attitude, considering the fact that it did feel like you knew you were being a little shady with this, right? Like, you knew that you could have said you had a gift. And I don't know if you wanted it to be a surprise, or if the gift really wasn't the real reason of why you were pulling up. You were pulling up because you wanted to kick it. You were pulling up because you wanted access to this woman's time. The gift was just going to be the icing on the cake, but it really wasn't the cake. And your feelings got hurt because you got denied, your desire, right? And so I don't know. I just feel like I'm also a big proponent in communication, and I felt like she could have better communicated her thoughts and her desires. So yeah, that's where we're at on that. But now, just very briefly, because I was sharing with you guys in the onset that this past week we hosted our 12-year anniversary at Onyx Gallery. It was the last event that is going to be hosted at Onyx Gallery, and so, it was a special moment. But, as always, people came ready to talk. And so, with it being our 12-year anniversary, the topic was the dozens. And, when we talk about the dozens and just like really what that means, just to give you all a mild rundown of like even what the topic was about, right? Because we all remember the dozens from back in the day, kind of like snapping and the stuff that we used to do. But just to read to you all what our overall topic was, in the Black community, playing the dozens wasn't just about witty comebacks. It was our proving ground. It taught us the power of quick thinking, the art of emotional perception, and how to measure precisely the difference between humor humor that bonds us and words that wound. So that this particular month, the Tequila Tales celebrates 12 unforgettable years by diving deep into how this tradition of clever observation and razor sharp wit timing influences our relationships today. We'll unpack what it means to know when to speak your truth, when to listen deeper, and how to communicate without losing connection, which is kind of what we were just talking about a moment ago. Whether you're navigating love, friendship, or family, mastering the art of playful engagement and emotional awareness can make the difference between a relationship that thrives and one that falters. Because sometimes the deepest truths come wrapped in laughter, and our biggest insights surface when we keep it real with wit, warmth, and wisdom. And so the conversation kind of went across, different spaces. But this particular comment that I'm going to cue up first, as always, people really say some things that I always find not only entertaining, but that I find to be just incredibly insightful, right? Just getting people's thoughts and perspectives on these topics I've always find to be so engaging. But this one was by a woman who more or less was talking about how there are times where words can hurt.
Baby who grew up in the 90s, and the 90s was all about humor. You had In Living Color, you had Martin, you had the Wayans brothers, you had movies like Friday. And we've lost that now. These new kids, they just don't got it in them. They making their little TikToks and doing their dances, but they don't understand the art. And then you introduce things like AI. So now they're not even thinking for themselves. They're typing in little prompts into computers to try to get witty things to say, which is now we have a generation that's not quick on their feet. Now for me, I specialize in positive shade. Like, I'm not gonna say nothing mean, but Black people, when they trying to be shady, they'll do something like, okay, sis, I see you with your little boots on. When somebody say your little something, okay, you got your little blue folder. You know, that's how you know. So, you know, I'm gonna tell y'all a story. I don't want to this one on the internet. But I had gotten into it one time in the 6th grade with this boy, and he was like, "That's why you bald headed." And I said, "That's why your mama bald headed." And then he started crying, and he said, "She just started chemo." And that was a lesson for me. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't deliberate. I didn't know what his mama was going through. I was just trying to bounce back because you said I didn't have no edges. But that taught me a very important lesson that you got to be careful because sometimes we take it way too low and you don't really know what somebody is going through. So certain topics got to be off limits. That's why you can't talk about nobody mama. I don't know what your mama going through. So that's when I learned you got to be real careful with that. But that's my comment.
And just FYI, right? She did give me permission to share it on the internet. I didn't just put her out there. She did give me permission to share it. But no, I thought that comment was a lot of fun, right? Like, because I mean, there are times, man, where you know you got to be aware of like different people's sensitivities and just how something is going to affect someone. One of the questions that I asked, and someone made a comment that I'll get to in a moment, where I was talking about like how do you know, how can you tell when you were just being too rough or when your partner is being too sensitive? And I don't even know if that's necessarily a question that's answerable. You know what I'm saying? It really is just about like perspective, but it is one of those things where I do feel like while we are continuing to attempt to grow and become more like inclusive and just kind of understand the differences that exist within us, that there are times where it's like, while in our attempt to be more sensitive, we've oftentimes become like incredibly more like overly sensitive. And now sometimes people don't have the ability. I'm not even gonna go as far as say to take a joke, because I think it's deeper than just an inability to take a joke, but just sometimes it becomes difficult to communicate because it feels like you're navigating a minefield of sorts, right? Like, and sometimes I can even encounter this where like I'm in the middle of a live show and you want to be able to speak plainly. I know what my intentions are, but I also know that, you want to be sensitive to just a wide myriad of things nowadays, whether it be a person's sexual orientation, their gender, just a lot of different things. And sometimes trying to navigate saying something simple can feel very complex, right? Because while your intention may not be to offend, I have no control over what you take offense to. You know what I mean? And it doesn't even have to be intended as a joke. I think sometimes we look at it like it's got to be a joke, or we're playing the dozens, or I'm snapping, where I was trying to be funny, but sometimes I may be trying to articulate a thought, right? And, one of the unfortunate consequences or drawbacks of language is that words can never fully accurately express the thoughts and the emotions that I'm thinking and feeling, right? And so it's like I'm trying to use words to convey an emotion to you, and I'm hoping that I do it in a way. That's why I said a moment ago, one of my pet peeves is being misunderstood. And so as a result of that, I personally go through greater lengths to attempt to articulate my thoughts so that you can at the very least understand them. Now, while I may want you to agree, I don't always care whether or not you agree. It's just important that you understand them, right? I don't want us to have beef over a misunderstanding. I don't want us to have beef because you thought I was saying this when in reality I was saying this, right? And so sometimes that's where things can get dicey, in this new space that we're in. And even people's fear of being canceled, right? I don't think that being canceled is a real thing. But I do think that sometimes expressing expressing your authentic thoughts and your authentic emotions can come with a drawback, right? And unintended consequences. And so the unfortunate consequence of that is that it it can push people to one or two extremes. It can either make people be completely callous, where they're just like, oh, well, I don't really give a shit, oh, well then, I say it when I say it. You know how people get, where that becomes their thing, and they feel like expressing your thoughts means doing it in a callous way, right? And because they choose not to try to respect your thoughts and emotions and your feelings, they just throw caution to the wind, and they just like, F it, I'ma just be belligerent with it, right? That's one extreme. And then you got the other extreme where people just don't talk and they just don't share anything at all, right? For fear of offending, for fear of saying something that gets them in hot water, and I feel like both extremes are not a good space to be, because there's a lot of people over here that are talking way too much. We kind of want them to shut the hell up, right? But then there are people over here who are not sharing their thoughts at all, and they may have something of value to impart, or it's just important for them to be able to share what their emotions are, because, your feelings matter also, you know what I'm saying? But people have kind of gotten into this space. And a lot of my friends are that way. A lot of business professionals in 2025, man, it's a lot of these topics, man, that they just will not touch, you know what I'm saying? Because they don't want that shit popping up on LinkedIn, or, there's a lot of people that won't even like my content for fear that someone sees that they like it. But then when they see me out in the streets, they're like, man, you funny as hell. I be wanting to like your shit, but I got a professional job. And I'm like, ain't nobody, stop it. Your president grabs vagina. Why are you acting like you? No, let me stop. But you get what I'm saying? Like, there are times where it's just like, we are trying to, self censor ourselves. And I feel like the people whose voices I would like to hear more of, those are the people who are not being vocal at all. And when that occurs, you leave the airwaves to the people that are clout chasing, to the people that are rage baiting. You know what I mean? And so then it's like the internet just becomes one big ass rage bait, Here's another comment that I thought was interesting as it relates to the topic of discussion.
I'm gonna probably say some stuff that's not popular, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I just want to bring it back to the question: why aren't men as direct anymore nowadays? Number one, men are sensitive. Men are sensitive. And because men are sensitive and they've never been taught how to manage their emotions at young ages, they're extraordinarily adverse to rejection. So, the second part of what I'm talking about is, it didn't matter back in the day because they got their game from their uncle back in the day. So their uncle said, just do this, holler at her, say this to her, do. So they were able to then just go and be like, hey, ma, you fine, yada, yada, yada. And then the girl be like, ugh. And then instead of crying in front of her, he says, well, fuck you then, you old bookhead bitch, you ugly, I don't give a fuck about you no way. Oh, your shoes is dirty, blah, 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 blah. All right, so we don't do that as much anymore because men have gotten smart in the last 10 years, it seems like. We don't want to just come up to you and talk to you and tell you that we're interested because we know we're meeting your representative. We're not meeting you. We're meeting the person that you think we want, if I even give you the smooth line. So now we want people to be true companions. That's why there's so much craziness online. Feel what I'm saying? I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but there are some men who will be like, I done got friend zoned like 6 or 7 times. Let me just wade in this water. Let me actually show up and see what she's about and understand what she's about and determine whether or not she's somebody I want to spend my time with. I'm not saying this is every man, right? But I've seen it happen. I've been the person before, right? I used to get perpetually friend zoned. Things changed and I didn't get friend zoned so much. But at that point, I wanted to make sure that the person that I was with was a person of high character and high quality. Fuck high value. I don't even know what that is. I want to make sure that the person I'm dealing with has high character, has morals, we share the same values, we want to do the same things in life. That would create a valuable relationship with another human being. Everything else can happen after that. I want somebody who's going to hold me accountable to my own standards. In order to do that, I got to know who you are. So you might be like, how come? You've only been dating him for 5 weeks. How come he won't say this? How come he won't do that? I'm used to, you might have a different person. He might have a little bit more emotional maturity, might be a little bit more patient. You see what I'm saying? So just to deal with that one nowadays, because I know, again, some men are smarter, some men don't care. They still don't care. They're going to go out and get it right then. That's what I'm talking about. But to act like that other brother don't exist, I think you might be, you know what I mean? You might like that guy. You might like that guy.
Okay. He said a lot, right? He said a lot. And you know, his comments got mixed reviews, right? But I thought he was eating. I thought he was eating. So to give some context, every month, you know, that I hosted, I always have my notes, right? But then I open it up to the crowd, because, you know, I kind of want to know what it is that the people in the audience that are, you know, kind of sharing their thoughts, like what it is that they want to talk about. So I allow people to ask certain questions anonymously that we will introduce as a topic of conversation. And so in between two particular segments, someone had asked this question, and it says, why are men not direct anymore? I find myself wondering if someone is just the friend or if they are actually interested. I end up giving my girls all the clues to piece together instead of just saying, this person asked me out. So I thought that was actually rather, you know, because this is not the first time that I've heard this. In 12 years, I've heard this several times, right? And so, you know, I kind of went on one of my little monologues and shit. And then Casey tried to treat me, you know what I mean? Like she was basically like, no, you're not answering the question, which I thought I kind of was, right? Like I more or less was saying that, like, if a person is not answering it directly, then they are answering it, right? But I also think that it's multifaceted, right? Like in a sense of, to say that men aren't direct anymore, and this is kind of what I said there, you know, everybody didn't agree, but this is just how I feel. I do think that there are many men that are direct, right? It may not be the men that you are interested in, right? There's always the people that are direct, abrupt, they make it clear. You know, every time people have these things where they say, well, why don't women do this and why don't men do this? The real question you should be asking is, why don't the men that are interested in me do this? Why aren't the women that I'm interested in doing this, right? Because it's not that everybody doesn't do this or everybody is doing that. So anytime that we approach a situation from that vantage point, you know, I always call BS, because it's like, you cannot tell me that men are not being direct. They totally are. But sometimes the direct that you're looking for isn't how you get it, right? Their direct might be a cat call. Hey, Shawty. Oh man, girl, you fine as hell. Man, let me get your number, right? Like that may be direct. That ain't the dude that you want to holler at you. What you want is Love Jones. You want a dude that's gonna say a poem, or a dude that's gonna come up and say some smooth stuff, but he also has to be someone that you're interested in. And that's what my man was getting at when he was like, more or less, that men have gotten smart, right? Men don't like rejection. And that in and of itself, I think, is a topic that could probably be an entire show in and of itself, is how adverse we become to rejection and the reasons why. You know, I think that throughout history, because of the way that things have been set up, we knew that we had to be the pursuers. And so the only way that we would come up in most cases was we had to hunt. And in most cases, women would not hunt. Now, even though I don't think things have changed much, you know, the system was always that women would kind of put themselves in position and give you certain signals to let you know that they were interested, or at the very least, make themselves available, right? But this is one of the big questions that I be asking people, even in our shows. Like, if someone were interested in you, what is the ideal way of how they should approach you? Because I don't even know in 22. Now, keep in mind, I ain't in these streets, right? But I'm like, man, if I was, I don't even know what would be a safe way of how to approach someone. I saw a matter of fact, hold on, just to reference it, right? Because a buddy of mine sent me this earlier today as we're sitting here having this, as I'm sitting here doing it. It was a meme that he sent, and it was a gentleman that it says 7 things that men do that upset women, right? And so he's sitting here and he's like thinking, number 1 was lie, right? That's the thing that men do that upset women. 2 was be honest. Okay. Number 3 was not talk. Women don't like it when men don't talk. But 4, one of the reasons that things that upset women was we talk too much. Number 5 was not show emotion, right? But number 6 was be too emotional. And then number 7 was just breathe, which I thought was hilarious, right? And, I'm not someone that just feels that everybody falls in that spectrum, but I'm saying that, like, that's what it's like sometimes when we get into these conversations and, we try to paint with this broad brush of like all men are one way or all women are another way. And it's just like, it really just kind of depends on who you are and what it is that you desire. You know what I'm saying? And so as we kind of are finding our way into this new space, oftentimes that's one of the questions that I'll ask the crowd. It's like, what is the ideal way of how you will want to be approached? I've had women say, I don't like it when men approach me at the gym, right? That's my sanctuary. I'm there to get my gains. I don't like, they coming over, they flirting, talking about how I look in this spandex. But then I have other women that are like, best time to go and meet a man is to be at the gym at 6 a.m. because that's when the doctors and the lawyers are. So it's like, okay, what is it, right? Do I holler at you at the gym? Do I not holler at you at the gym? And ultimately, what it comes down to is if you are feeling that dude, if you are feeling that woman, you're probably going to be down for whatever it is that they say. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing that nobody wants to admit. That's why all of this conversation is bullshit at the end of the day. Because if you are feeling them, like really feeling them, they really got to go out of their way to make you like not be interested. And I'm not saying it's impossible, because it's definitely possible, right? Like I've heard of situations where people will say some dumb stuff and all of a sudden a woman becomes instantly unattracted, and that's real. But for the most part, to make it seem like there's a perfect way to approach someone, they're not being direct. One of the things I say is like, yo, why are you not approaching them? And not like you doing everything, but just, we are in a day and age where if you are feeling someone, and it don't even have to be a full on asking them for their number, right? Like there are things y'all do. So stop playing. There are things that women do that can make it known to a guy, hey, you know what I'm saying? I'm kind of feeling you a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of feel like in 2025 and beyond, that is the space that we're on. And this is not me trying to put the onus on women. I think that what we have to recognize is that everybody's built differently, right? Some women are A types. Like there was some other comments that got made inside of the show where people were talking about like, oh, well, if a man don't approach, what is it that they be saying? Because I always hear variations of this exact same bullshit where they be like, a man goes after what he wants, that whole thing. And it's like, yeah, not all men though, right? Like we got to get out of this space of using these universal, adages that sound good in memes, but they're not 100% realistic in real life, because some women are A-type. Some women are A-type and they don't need alpha men. Some A-type women need beta men. And we got to get out of this space where we're shaming anybody for what side of the spectrum that they fall on. If you're an alpha woman, you probably need a beta male. And we got to stop, us as men, stop shaming beta men, right? Like, yo, all right, nigga, I'm not a lumberjack. You know what I'm saying? Don't think you're going to try me or my woman or my child. You know what I'm saying? But like, if I'm the type that is by nature more of a nurturer, then okay, I could probably stand to deal with an A-type woman. It don't mean that she's emasculating me. She needs to obviously respect me. But in terms of what harmony looks like, what chemistry looks like, oftentimes it's more complex than just, well, women need to be this way and men need to be this way. Like anytime that we get into that space, I'm like, yeah, these are people that have not evolved yet, or they're just not real people. If you just really think that this is how humans interact, you know what I'm saying? You got to find what's right for you, and you got to take ownership of that, right? You got to know, if you are the A-type woman, could you deal with like a legit ass dude? I remember there's this meme that I used to see when it was like, why is it that the quiet types like loud women or something like that? And it was a dude that responded in the tweet where he was like, because somebody got to let the waitress know that I never received my mashed potatoes and it's not going to be me, or something like that, right? Like, it was funny, right? Like, but it made me laugh because I was like, that is how relationships work. My mother is A-type. It don't get no more A-type than my mama. She is an Aries and she is hot-blooded. My father's a Taurus. He's laid back, he's cool, he's easygoing. You know what I'm saying? My Taurus, my father ain't no punk. I dare you to pull up on him. I've seen the Taurus, I've seen the bull charge. You know what I mean? But in terms of who is running point in terms of the initiation of stuff, it's my mama, right? Because my father, he cool to lay at the crib and not do too much. So it's gonna be my mother that's gonna be initiating a lot of activities. That's gonna be the more vocal person. And these two have been married for over 30 something odd years, right? Like, or probably coming on 40. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, y'all, we gotta get out of this. Men are one way, women are another way. I just think that's so juvenile, man. And it's so played out. This next one, this was a really good exchange. Okay. It falls inside of the vein. So with this particular event, I told you all about this question that I asked and how, you know, normally I got tons of notes, and I had tons of notes. I couldn't get to 4 pages of notes because when I asked this one question from the audience, the entire event, almost 3/4 of it was on autopilot, because it was just, so I literally got an opportunity to just sit back and enjoy the event. I mean, I was still steering the ship, but at that point, it was powered off of this one question of, why are men not direct anymore? Right. So I'm gonna read the question again, and then I'm gonna play this exchange between husband and wife that I just thought was super dope. Right. But once again, the question, why are men not direct anymore? I find myself wondering if someone is just the friend or if they are actually interested. I end up giving my girls all the clues to piece together instead of just saying, this person asked me out. Okay.
I want to apologize to the ladies in advance before what I'm going to say. Now, I'm a Taurus and I'm very
always
honest,
one.
So, women have this thing called intuition, correct? Why do we pick and choose when our intuition works? In this situation, you know when a man wants you and a man don't. If he ain't saying nothing, you ain't it. Like, there's literally this point blank period. There's no need to play around the game and live in your delusion and try to convince yourself that he wants you. Now, we being honest, like for instance, I met my wife, quick little snippet. I tried to hit my wife with a car.
That's violent.
No, keep and I don't mean like I don't even mean like I tried. I saw this woman walking by the job for about 2 months. Eventually, I'm gonna get you. We in work 2 different departments. I saw my opportunity, let the customer car down, floored it. It is what it is. Keeping it a bean. From there, she started cursing me out. Got her. Done.
See?
I knew what I wanted. You know what I'm saying? No man is gonna waste your time. Let me correct this, because there are a lot of bozos out there that do waste your time.
Yes.
But in today's age, we too old to be trying to decipher between if he wants me and if he don't. If he not stepping up to the plate, move on to the next one. It's somebody that wants to step up to the plate that you're not giving a chance. And most women sit in that delusion and try to convince themselves that it's him. I can change him. It's him. We all got our daddy-daughter issues, father, mother, so on and so forth. But that building a man, like, I want to say majority of this room is over 30. We ain't got time for that shit no more. Find your person. Don't be afraid to approach that person. Make it happen. If he ain't doing what he need to do where you want him to do it, trust me, somebody will. And in that situation, if he try to pick up his eggs and try to come get you, yo, bro, it's too late, player. Go to the next one. This camera in my face got me nervous. I didn't even know he was here. I wasn't even paying you no mind. But that's all I'm saying. Like, stop trying to convince yourself, because the women live on their intuition so much, but that shit work when it want to work. And that shit is so fucking selective, it's annoying as hell. It's either you got it or you don't. Don't pretend. It is what it is. Go with your gut and follow your gut. Stop trying to convince your gut otherwise, because then somehow it's his fault, when in hindsight, it's your fault for allowing yourself to sit there. And yeah, I'm going on a tangent. But no, pass it to somebody else.
Okay. because this is a thing too, right? Like, and I speak from women, because I know that women's intuition, we know, we feel it, we know, but we also spend so much time kind of psyching ourselves thinking that what we're feeling is wrong, right? When you grow up, especially in a black community, black homes, when you're younger and you see your grandmother and your auntie or whoever, your mama's like, go hug her. And you're like, nah, I don't want to hug her. Mm-hmm. Go hug your grandmother. Out of respect, you're supposed to put what you feel aside to do what you're supposed to do, to be respectful, right? So we're taught at a very young age to put our feelings aside. We don't learn to trust and lean into our intuition until we're older. Right? And then hip hop culture has told us we gotta ride or die for niggas. We gotta ride or die, literally.
Like, why
like,
we gotta die?
I don't know, we gonna die. Like, you know what I mean?
We're gonna die.
We're gonna die. We gotta prove ourselves. We gotta show up and we gotta drag them through. And like, we've been taught that that love feels hard, and you're supposed to go through all the fucking fire, the rain, the sleet, hail, snow to have your happy ending, right? And that's really where it comes down to in terms of like what love is and our intuition. So yeah, we want a nigga to make us feel good and tell us certain things, right? And not have us play this whole song and dance. Now, yes, you were very, very direct that you were interested, right? But a lot of men put on a facade that we have to kind of sift through, and we got to figure out, like the persona, the representative, right, if you will. And we have to deal with that too. But not only do we have to deal with that, we also have to unlearn so many of our generational cycles in the process, right? And so that's where things get really difficult. And I think that, yes, we want to trust our intuition, but we haven't been taught to tap into that. We're only now as adults learning what that feels like and what that looks like. That's why for us and our kids, you don't want to hug her, you ain't hugging nobody. It's your body. You have autonomy over your body. That doesn't mean you walk in a house and you don't say hello. You're going to be respectful, but you don't have to touch anybody. But those little things that you learn to say, hey, I'm just going to do it, people pleasing and all of that, we've had to learn through that, most of us as black women, right? So we just give us a little bit of credit for that and a little bit of grace, because it is hard. And we're raising our children to not have to unlearn those patterns.
Yeah.
It's not an us talk. I'm sorry, y'all.
Just quick. Okay,
couples.
Just a quick question. No. We ain't gonna go back and forth. Honey, I hear everything you're saying. Okay, I hear everything you're saying. But my question is, if everything what you just said, what's stopping her from just asking a question? You interested? What's stopping that? Because you sit in contact. Oh, you had your moment. Hold on.
Ask me a question.
You ain't answering in time.
Can you repeat the question and speak right into the mic? They couldn't hear you in the back.
So my question is, if everything what you said is accurate, which everything I want to believe in, I believe everything you're saying is accurate. Why? I apologize.
He's trying to make sure he's not an adult.
No, I don't want to. No, I'm saying, if everything what you're saying, why not, as a woman, with all of that knowledge you just spilled, just build up the courage to just ask, are you interested? Rather than contacting your friends to try to convince you and so on and so forth. Just ask the person, are you interested? Or even, you want to go on a date? You want to go take a drink? So on and so forth. Just pursue rather than being the pursuant.
There's unlearning there too, because we're also taught to be courted and to be sought after, right? And so I understand what you're saying, but the rejection also, we feel it. Men are sensitive and women are as well, right? And then there's a part of like leading and we want to trust the man to lead and what that looks like. And I'm not saying that a woman should not be direct. I'm not saying that we cannot, evolve as Isaac said into that. I just think that we also have to take into consideration all of our generational cycles, what we as a black community have dealt with, and all of that ancestral trauma, right, that comes with it and how that impacts the families today. And what do we do to really dismantle that? And what can we do? And so when we tell a man that they come up to us and they say, hey, you know, hey girl, I like this and that. And you're like, nah, not really my type. And you're like, well, fuck you then, bitch, that. So also I don't get any respect because now I've rejected you. Or I don't get respect from a man because he doesn't find me attractive. And those are some of the foundational things that we also need to discuss, right? Oh, so if I'm not pretty enough for you to fuck, you're not going to respect me. Now that's also not cool, right? So like this is a lot. This is like a really layered kind of topic. But when we talk about men and being direct, it really and us women, it's us trusting our intuition and us making it a point to really build and develop that self-trust that was broken from childhood.
Man, listen, okay. That is one of the things that I absolutely love about Tequila Tales, right? Like, which is just the quality of discourse that we have. And this is not to pat myself on the back. I mean, a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Because if there's anything that I've done to assist in this, it is, I've said it numerous times before, man, I am the Warren Buffett of relationships. And what I mean by that is just the same way that Warren Buffett has the capacity to attract a lot of successful income generating, you know, opportunities and businesses to him for Berkshire Hathaway, I am someone that has the ability to, without much provocation, draw in a lot of successful relationships, right? In terms of just people that will add value. And so the people that attend Tequila Tales, man, it's not much that I do. It's not much that I do to provoke that beyond just like some elements of the discussion. But I'm always so appreciative of people willing to share their vulnerability, right? Like to have a moment in Tequila Tales, right? You even saw like my man forgot that the camera was right there. And this wasn't the camera that was across. That camera was every bit of, 4 or 5 feet in front of him. It was 35 millimeter lens. Okay. So, and that was a tight shot. So my man was right there. Right. But when he finally realized like, oh, now I didn't realize the camera was here. Right. That's my goal, is to make you forget that this is being recorded, to make y'all forget that this is happening, and for y'all to have a moment. Right. And not like y'all beefing, but just like, no, like we don't see 100% on this. We got different perspectives, and then we can all share that in a space that feels protected, right? Where I can disagree with someone, but it's built off of a foundation of respect, and so you get these very authentic exchanges like that one, because to be very honest with you, I see it from both of their perspectives. You know what I'm saying? And I love it when someone can take a point and can just take it into a completely different space that you may not have even considered, right? So after that, there was another woman that there were like 2 other people that made comments. And then Casey also made a comment that for me was like, oh, wow, like, yeah, this conversation is really going into a space that is not only healthy to have, but it's something that a lot of times we overlook, right? And so like one of the things that the woman had brought up in that exchange is about the safety element. And admittedly, that is something, man, that us as men, we could be very, very cavalier about, right? Like, even when I was talking about, women being assertive in making their interests known. And someone made a comment where they were more or less talking about the importance of like how you vet someone, and how sometimes the first like line of either defense or the first line of acknowledging whether or not this person is worthy of you even taking the next step with is determined upon how they approach, right? So if you are the one that initiates, then essentially you absolve yourself of the potential to be able to see, are they going to approach you like, the dude that's like, oh man, what F you then? And da, 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 da. You know what I'm saying? Like, the first thing, like understanding that safety and danger is always a part of every interaction that you have. You're constantly looking for clues. Your mind is constantly cycling through all of these potential scenarios of how a situation could play out. You know, one of the things that Casey was talking about, where she was talking about how on her way to the venue, because normally one of us would drive, the other one would drive, but one of our cars was in the shop. And so she just, you know, took an Uber because I had to get there early. And on her way there, you know, we live like 20 minutes away from the venue. She was not only shared her location, but she was sending me all kinds of, you know, text messages about how, you know, man, this dude's like 400 pounds, but I think I could take him though. You know what I'm saying? And blah, blah, blah. And she was being playful, but she shared in her comment shortly afterwards how real that is, how like women are considering things even all the way down to the kind of shoes that they have on. Can they run away from this person? You know what I'm saying? And, you know, it goes back to that whole social media question about the bear and the man, and which one do women feel safer around, which, you know, for men to hear that, it feels absurd to us. Like, the fuck are you talking about? That is a bear, okay? It is a grizzly bear. Have you not seen The Revenant? Okay, what are you talking about? But then you start to hear about all these situations, right? And you start to see how our thought process is, and just how cavalier men can be as it relates to assault. You know, and the questions that we ask when a woman acknowledges or shares that they've been assaulted, before we give comfort, before we give our outrage and frustration, you know, in layman, the fact that it even had to occur, we start asking dumbass questions like what they was wearing or where was they at, or, you know what I mean? Like it's this space that we fall into where we don't believe the person that's sharing something that's incredibly sensitive with us. You know what I'm saying? This belief that just because one person may have lied about it, that all women that are sharing that they've been assaulted are lying about it. You know what I'm saying? And it's almost like, yeah, I get it. You know what I'm saying? You know, I think about how many times I've walked away from my drink. I'm sitting in mixed company or whatever. We're at a bar, and I walk away. I go to the bathroom, and both of my drinks are sitting right there. You know, because these are people that ultimately I trust, but ain't nobody I'm hanging with trying to hit me with the date rape drug. You know what I'm saying? But that women typically, unless they are with their significant other or very close friends, they either got to, you know, carry their drink. You can't even trust the bartender sometimes. And shit, I was watching SVU. One of the episodes I went, that's like my background programming sometimes. You know, it's SVU, which is probably not good background programming, right? Because, oh my goodness, man, that is a show that is built on trauma. Okay, Olivia didn't have more situations. But anyway, but just saying, you can't even trust the bartender to look after your drink, right? Like, they might be in on the hoax, you know. And so it's just yeah, like I said, like to see the multiple levels that a conversation can go through, you know. I not only appreciate it, but, you know, ultimately, man, it feels healthy, man. It feels healthy. One of the last comments, you know, when and this is kind of like a callback to something that I was sharing earlier when I talked about whether or not do you feel that you are being insensitive, or that your significant other is being too sensitive, you know, and kind of how you balance that. I felt that this woman's exchange was kind of interesting.
Definitely. And what I mean by both sides of the fence is I date men and women.
Okay.
It's gotten sensitive because this whole LGBT, elemental P, Q, RS thing, you can't say anything because people's feelings get hurt. Oh, you trigger me. Oh, that's a trigger. Don't say that. Oh, you can't say that. So when it comes to the dozens is about hitting them where it hurts. Like, I got to hit you where it hurts because that's what you talked about my mama. So since you talked about my mama, oh, look at you with your gay self. You know what I'm saying? So, but now you can't joke like that anymore because it's everybody's too damn sensitive. And you can't always be sensitive. Like, so many people have this trauma that they haven't healed from, and everything is about a trigger. Well, if you're triggered, then that means you need to go heal. Simple as that. You need to go heal because everybody got to walk around on eggshells to make sure that they don't hurt your feelings because you're too sensitive about who you are. I live by the 4 agreements. Be impeccable with my words, never take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do my best. The 2 things mostly everybody does is take things personally and always making assumptions. If you take everything personally and making assumptions, you need to go do something about that. It's a you problem, not an everybody else problem. Like, we were having fun playing the dozens, and you're crying now.
Now we was playing the dozens and you crying now, right? Like, the goal is not to have you crying, right? But, once again, though, I always appreciate, man, people just sharing their honest truths, right? And, as I wrap, I kind of wanted to, every once in a while, I like to pop in and just show the actual conversation that occurs inside of the tequila tales, right? Like, because it's nothing like being in the room, and it's sometimes the clips don't do it justice because you're just kind of watching a piece of a conversation, kind of isolated, like an isolated thought. And the reality is that sometimes the watching the conversation unfold is where the beauty occurs, right? Is having an opportunity to see how the exchange unfolded. And so, one of the things that I've desired literally for over a decade is having the capacity to bring people fully into that experience, right? And, while it has taken some time, I'm getting a lot closer to it, right? And so, just know that while the Tequila Tales has ended at Onyx, we're far from over, right? We're far from over. And just know that there are some things that are in the works right now that are incredibly exciting. Incredibly exciting, right? Like, I'm trying to tell y'all, it's gonna be some shit. It's gonna be some shit. And I just want y'all to know, if you are watching it right now, man, for the couple of dozen people that are watching it on this stream right now, man, just know that I told you here first, right? Like, and I appreciate all of y'all that have been tapping in as I've been kind of figuring it out, right? Like, the bridge between the virtual space and the live space, okay? But just know, in these next couple of months, man, you're gonna see these 2 worlds combine, where I'm going to be able to bring you in completely into the live experience, right? That has been my goal for a long time. And I think initially I was thinking live recorded show, and then boom, you just put it on the network. But thanks to technology and just how things have kind of evolved over the last like 4 or 5 years, we increasingly have the capacity to pull you in to the live experience, to where it's, even if you cannot be here in Phoenix, even if I'm not in your physical city, or you are not in the city where Tequila Tales is occurring, you are going to be able to watch the experience live, right? And interact live as if you were in the room. So that's what we're working on, man. And I'm telling you, man, I'm right here with it. I got all the pieces. And just know that very soon, probably as early as May. I'm gonna just throw that out there. Probably as early as May is when you will have an opportunity to experience the Tequila Tales live, right? And so yeah, man, I'm really excited about that. And so for those of you guys that have been kind of like tuning in from week to week with the script, I hope that you'll continue to tune in. But I also want you to participate in that experience, right? And then also help me like make it big. So I ain't gonna ask you for nothing right now, but just know that once I put the bat signal in the sky, okay, I want all of us to be a part of this next stage, right? Because dead ass, man. You know, this shit ain't easy. It's a labor of love, and I absolutely adore it. But it ain't easy, though. It ain't easy, okay? You know what? Have you all seen? Oh shit! And you know what? I wish I had a. Actually, I think I queued it up last week. I may have. I don't know. But have you all seen the interview with Anthony Mackie? He was on that podcast, The Pivot, where the basic gist of what he was talking about was like how as a community, we've misled our children. You know, we tell them that if you work hard, if you persevere, if you focus in, that you'll be successful. But the reality of it is that success is given, right? It's not earned, it's given. And while there are some aspects and elements about that can be challenged, overall, I do understand the point that he's making, which is, if you really strip away all the layers, it's that no one excels, no one elevates without some assistance. Think about that painting that, many of us either have in our house or we've seen someone that has in their house, where it's like the one black arm that's reaching down and the other one that's reaching up. That's actually what elevation looks like. It is incredibly hard to self-elevate. The whole concept of pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps is bullshit. It's bullshit. It sounds good. That Horatio Alger's nonsense is bullshit. It sounds good, but it's impossible. It is impossible to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. That's some cartoon shit. I need someone to show me what that looks like. What does that look like? Are these anti-gravity boots that you have on? How do you lift yourself up? I can't. If I wanted to do it right now, look, shit sounds stupid, right? It looks stupid as I'm doing it right now because it's impossible. It's impossible to lift yourself up. You can pull yourself up. You cannot lift yourself up, right? But in order for me to pull myself up, I have to be able to grab a hold of something. So if all the resources, if all the access, if all the wealth or money or whatever is outside of my reach, I cannot pull myself up. I can't pull myself out, right? I'm grasping for straws at that point. Someone has to reach down, has to grab you. Someone has to reach down and deem that you are worth elevating or saving or whatever, right? And so much of success is about how you position yourself with the hopes that someone of influence or affluence recognizes you and chooses to bring you in. Now, where I think sometimes we can be misled is that we believe that influence only comes from the wealthy, because it doesn't. I had a thought the other day when I was thinking about like clips that go viral. If they did a study on content that goes viral, they could probably trace every viral clip back to one person specifically. One specific person was the catalyst to whatever piece of content went viral. Someone shared it. It might not have been an important person, because sometimes you might have important people that share it, but for whatever reason, that's not what gets the snowball rolling down the hill and gaining momentum. It could be someone random. Someone random saw that thing, thought it was funny, shared it on their story. Then 5 other people saw that, they thought it was funny. 2 of them shared it. And then all of a sudden it starts to compound. But the magical thing about this world is you don't know who that magical person is, right? Who's the catalyst? Who's the person that you're looking for that's going to give you the access, that's going to give you the eyeballs, that's going to create the momentum that you are looking for to excel or elevate, right? And so the reason that I'm sharing this is because I think that there are times where if you are not an influencer, if you are not some super successful person, if you are not some rich person, a lot of times we undermine the influence that we may have and the capacity that we have to benefit people, right? To benefit those individuals that we love. And so once again, to bring this conversation back to this broken record of a conversation that I'm going to keep on saying is the importance of what circling the wagons look like, right? You know, there's a comedian that I follow. His name is Ryan Davis. And, you know, funny guy, right? And he's seen, you know, quite a bit of success, but he hasn't really fully hit his stride yet. You know, I mean, he's obviously doing comfortable or whatever, but he's grinding, you know, and he recently had a comedy special that he tried to get on Netflix. And for whatever reason, Netflix turned it down, even though it was well produced, even though, you know, he's got good social media engagement, even though he's pretty freaking hilarious, right? But he said, you know what? I don't even care about that, right? I'm going to take the $100,000 that I invested in shooting this, and I'm going to self-release it. And he's self-releasing it this week, you know, and I think he's doing it through his Patreon. I'm more than likely share it on my personal platform as well as on Tequila Tales, right? Because I just respect everything about this movement of what it is that he's doing, because I understand that that is what success is going to look like for many of us moving forward. It's not going to be about waiting for the Hulus or the Netflixes or the Amazon Primes or the Bravos or, you know, whatever other platform that we deem to be, you've made it. Nah, that's not going to be where success is. It's going to be in figuring out how to curate your own audience and whether or not that audience sees value in what it is that you're sharing, right? But there's also a relationship. There's also some responsibility that comes along with that. You can't just consume it, love it, and then be like, whoo, that was great. And then you don't do anything. So when he first released this, he told people, I'm not asking you to sign up for my Patreon. I'm not asking you to do, like, I get all of that. It could just be a comment. It could be a like. It could be a sharing it in your story. Or if you want to elevate, then yeah, you can subscribe to my Patreon and the whole 9, right? But it's like, we have to stop discounting the influence that we can have. I think sometimes just because we can't do it all, just because we can't make the full investment, that we don't think that we have any influence. And sometimes just sharing some shit is powerful, right? Why? Because you sharing it is your endorsement. You know, I had a conversation with a good friend of mine recently where we were talking about how Tyga, the rapper, you know, was talking about how there was some YouTube channel that they follow, and this YouTube creator makes great content, but only got like 200 subscribers. And I guess recently they had stopped sharing content or stopped creating content. And he was in some interview where he was basically like kind of lambasting that and saying like, man, nah, don't stop. Keep going. All right, this is some old quasi weak ass inspirational message. First thing I thought when my friend was telling me this was, bitch, did you share it on your platform? Why are you sitting here telling him to keep creating with 200 subscribers? Meanwhile, you probably got 4 or 5 million Instagram subscribers. Why are you not sharing their content on your platform? Don't speak about it anonymously in some random ass interview. Why don't you give us their handle right now? Right? My wife showed me this TikTok channel just last night. Some random white woman. She was talking about this this black chef that was creating content. He's cooking, he's doing all this other type of stuff, and she's just talking about how she is just enamored with this guy, and she cannot believe that he only had 200 subscribers on his TikTok. She starts breaking down this video. Look at that. That's ASMR. Look at this. Look at the angles. Look how good that food looks. How does he only have 200 subscribers? When we clicked on it, she might have posted this a day or two ago. Now he's up to like 10K followers, right? Because she had 4 million followers. See, that's what the fucking ally looks like. That's what it looks like when you're supporting someone. It's not always your physical money. A lot of times it is, right? But sometimes it's your voice. Sometimes it's your endorsement, right? Sometimes it's the cosign. That's how most people get jobs nowadays, is referrals. Referrals. We would not need DEI if it was not for the fact that nepotism and referral-based, employment was how most people get their jobs, right? We don't have the access. That's what DEI is. It ain't giving us something that we don't deserve. It's someone just hearing us out. But inside of the content space, inside of the business space, you telling people about the things that you like is what makes things successful. Casey recently shared something that was personal, professional, that she's working with. She shared it with one of her girlfriends that's kind of going through something. She said, "Oh, you know what, man? There's a therapist I've spoken to in the past. She does great work." Casey could have been like, "Oh no, I'm keeping my therapist to myself because I don't want none of my business." No, if this is my friend and she might need this thing, I'm gonna let her know about somebody that I've worked with in the past who I think is incredible. Okay, now all of a sudden you've connected your girlfriend with some that's going to help her. It's also going to help the therapist because now she gets to make more money. This is what circling the wagons look like. We cannot be stingy with our resources. And that's one of the things that we have a tendency to do in our community, right? There's this belief that it ain't enough to go around. There's this belief that if you share that thing, that secret of yours, that everybody's going to use it. And then now all of a sudden it's not going to be special, right? But meanwhile, while you're holding it, your favorite artist, you don't want them to get commercial. Oh, I like them when they underground, but you not sharing their art form. Now all of a sudden they not making money. Now they trying to throw shows in your city and only 40, 50 people are showing up because we're not sharing how dope they are, right? But let you go into a restaurant and some racist shit happen. Let you go into a restaurant and you get some bad service. Oh, you hopping on your social media ASAP. You letting everybody know about how much you did not like something. Oh, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying let's do the same thing for the shit that we like, right? That is what circling the wagons look like. That's what it looks like. If you are enjoying something, if something is adding value to your world, share it. Share it either personally with other people, you know what I'm saying, that you think would appreciate it, or share it openly and just, hey, maybe it gets no likes. I don't give a shit. I'm doing this because I'm trying to support something or someone that I think has value. That is how we grow. We cannot, I don't know if y'all know the story of the talents, right? The story of the talents, which is where like they say God gave one man 1 talent, another man 5 talents, and another man 10 talents. And he came back a little later. He came to the man with the 10 talents, asked how, kind of surveyed him, saw that he had been using them, so he doubled it. Went to the man with the 5 talents, saw that he had been using them, put them to work, he doubled it. Went to the man with the 1 talent and said, "What happened?" He said, "Man, I was afraid that I was going to lose it, so I buried it because I wanted to keep it secure." And so he took that 1 talent and gave it to the dude that had 10, right? And talents is actually was money, you know what I'm saying, in that particular story, right? But when you kind of extrapolate this, it's like what that is, to me, it's a metaphor of how we safeguard things because we are afraid of losing it. And in your desire to create security, to keep it locked up, you end up losing it anyway. right? And so we don't want to do that when it comes to our community. We don't want to do that when it comes to things that add value to us, right? So, you know, yeah, with that being said, like I said, when I put that bat signal up, I'm gonna need y'all to help me spread this message, because it's gonna be a fun next leg of the journey. I know what elevation is going to look like as it relates to the next stage of Tequila Tales, and I'm going to be incredibly appreciative of your support in helping me share what that next stage looks like, right? So just, you know, stay tapped in. But man, you guys, it's been fun thus far. And you know, if you all are not already a part of the inner circle, let me go ahead and just put this out real quick, because this is important, and I have shared it times in the past. You know what I'm saying? If you are not a part of the inner circle, you definitely want to be a part of the inner circle. Let me go ahead and put this link in the chat. And largely because there's going to be some things that I'm only going to share with the inner circle, right? I can't really go into too many specifics, but just know that this next level is going to broaden our base. And I'm gonna want to make certain that all the people that were here from day one gets grandfathered in. And so there will be a cutoff point where everybody that's a part of this list, this will get grandfathered into the day one list. And then we just got the regular inner circle list. I guarantee you want to be a part of the day one list. Trust me. There's going to be certain text messages that only goes out to the day one list. So if you are not a part of the inner circle, I implore you to go ahead and sign up. I don't even care what state you're in. You want to be a part of the day one list, because it's going to come with benefits. But you guys, I love you. And until the next time.